Welcome to Africa's Vision Network. My name is Omar Ashaka, your guest host. The title of our program is The About Face Project. Our special guest is Mr. Reuben Jiggets, PhD, CLC. First, like I normally do on our shows, I'd like to salute our military, those who are serving abroad, those who are serving here at home. Our military, as I often say, make tremendous sacrifices to keep us safe and to keep our families safe and to keep America safe. We're very grateful tonight because Mr. Jiggets happens to be a veteran, and we want to salute him for serving in the Army during the Korean War. Again, our veterans and our current military folks deserve all the credit and all the recognition and appreciation from all of us. Reuben, welcome to our show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I was looking at the card, your card, and I mentioned that you have your PhD and CLC. Tell our audience, what does CLC stand for?
A certified life coach.
And your card, you mentioned you've been involved with coaching, counseling, life skills, and training, empowering people for success.
That's actually what my work is now and has been for several years, and I enjoy that work, and that's what has caused the addition of the About Face Project.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, Reuben, I'm really looking forward to this discussion because I think I may have mentioned this to you. Of course, we met each other many years ago,
Yes.
and thank God we can sit here and talk about the program. But also, I think I may have mentioned to you that you kind of remind me of Les Brown, the motivational speaker. So we know that you're going to make this a very exciting show. But tell us a little bit about your background, and then maybe you can tell us about the About Face project.
Well, first, thanks for including me in the company of Les Brown.
My pleasure.
I think he's a very powerful speaker. I'll be very quick. My career actually began, my working career actually began at the U.S. Government Printing Office several years ago. And I worked there long enough to become a procurement officer. And then the bug of entrepreneurship bit me, and I left there to actually become a trainer and human resource developer in a cosmetic company. And having to move my family around the country, and we've lived in several states around the country, and in that process, actually had the opportunity to go out of business, enjoyed that process, and then start another one and work with other people with another one. And eventually I landed in this area of training, human resource development, and now assisting people in the About Face project.
Well, looking at your brochure, I mean, it's a fascinating project. How did you come up with the name, the About Face project?
Actually, a very good friend of mine, and we had having lunch one day, and he began talking about, well, we were talking about raising money for which was not named this until he said so. If you'll notice, it says at sponsored by the Center for Powerful Living. Well, the Center for Powerful Living has been involved in training as a part of my ministry since 1994.
Yeah, notice that date.
Yes, and we have we had come across this opportunity, and actually was looking for a name. And he said, Reuben, have you thought about all the people in the military that are now being transitioned out? They're looking for an opportunity to change their lives and to move forward. And he says, think of military about face. People going in one direction have to change and go in another direction. We actually shook hands on that over lunch, and he allowed me to adopt the name. And from that point on, it's been the About Face project.
Well, that's interesting, Reuben, because actually when you told me the name of the project, my first thought was on the show I was going to come in and kick my heels and do an About Face. So I kind of thought about the military connection there. But Reuben, your brochure talks about we are turning lives around, stepping stones to positive behavior change. I want you to talk to us a little bit about that, but also can you quickly tell us about the role that your wife, I believe, is your partner in this, right?
Yes, yes. She actually owns the company.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, she allows me to work with her. Only because I have a lot of grandiose ideas and of putting things together. She is the calming source for us, and of course she's highly degreed and she knows exactly what she wants and how she's doing it. And I'm sort of the implementer. I'm actually the general manager for the
Okay.
company, so I hit the ground running. That's why I'm here today,
Okay.
to do this. And hopefully you'll get a chance to meet her and actually sit and talk with her one day.
Okay.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, you said she was highly degreed.
Yes.
Can you share with our audience the type of educational background she has so they get a flavor as to what kind of education helped put this project together?
Well, actually, I'll start from the time I met her.
Mhm.
She was the manager and or director of the training operation for the National Institutes of Health. And when I met her, with my background and her background, I will tell you, it just sort of put us on a good path together. So we had a lot of things we could share, and we've developed many different types of training programs. She has her own website. I won't mention that today, but it lists lots and lots of different programs that we have developed, and also gone out and trained on many government agencies and private concerns.
Okay.
That's how we really got started, and that leads all the way up to this one right here.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, Ruben, I'm going to let you just kind of share some of the key points about the About Face project.
Okay, it's okay if you don't mind if I glance down
No,
here
no,
a little
no.
bit, because I haven't committed all of this,
Sure.
everything to memory yet. But our community today, and when I say our, I'm really speaking of the United States. This is our community, because this is what you and I are sharing today is because the criminal element or the generation of criminals, meaning people who have offended the law in some way. I do not mean criminal as meaning a bad person, but that's what the law calls them. Okay, so what has happened is, and starting from very early ages, children into teens, into young adults, and even into adulthood, have had the opportunity, I'll say that, to offend the law. So that is, and on a political side of that, it has cost our country millions and millions and billions of dollars to try to, and I'm going to use this term, to warehouse them until they have been habilitated. See, they use the term rehabilitated. Not so. It's habilitated, because when a person has been habilitated, then only then can you rehabilitate them.
Okay.
Are you following where I'm going with that?
Yes, I am. Now, I have to
Okay.
ask you, Ruben, I guess I'm curious, is either one of those situations occurring? Are they being rehabilitated? Are they being habilitated?
Well,
There's
I
a lot
won't
of
argue.
negative.
I won't argue against what the status quo is about. I'm arguing that because of our program. What we have found is that when we're working with people who feel that, and when I say working with them, coming to our seminars and so forth, we're talking with people who have been educated, who understand that there is a law, who have had opportunities to interact in society, but they went off the track.
Okay.
Person is not really a criminal. They made a mistake. So why don't we work with them, help them get back on the track so they can be productive citizens?
Okay. Just one
Yes.
clarification, so
Sure.
so the audience will know. Are these individuals, for the most part, they have been incarcerated?
No, sir,
So they have not been?
have
Okay.
not been.
Okay.
Now, for the most part, okay?
Okay.
Now, we started this process working with an area in the legal system called pretrial services, which means that a person they have committed an incident, and they have been locked up, and they have been arraigned, and the judge has given them some time before they actually will come back to like a final hearing and maybe even a sentencing.
Okay.
You see, I'm not trying to be totally correct about that, but it's a process. We like to capture them between that period of having confronted the law the first time, and before they have to go back the second time. And when we do, and they go through this program, they're more apt to sound like and act like a more upright citizen that is understanding and is taking responsibility for what they have done. And believe it or not, the judges take umbrage about that because they're actually looking for people who've done something different than what they've been doing in order to cause the infraction that they did with the law.
Okay, so by the time they go back for that final sentence, if they've been part of your project and they've received training, it sounds like a key word, this is something Omar will use, that they might be showing remorse when they go back in front of that judge for the final sentence, and that's something that judges sound like they can appreciate because it sounds like the individual, or it appears as though the individual recognized they did something wrong and now they want to try to get on the right track.
Well, remorse is one word. Some people even use a higher level word like contrition, that sort of thing. That's one piece of what the judge is looking for. Okay. The other piece is, can I stand there and say with surety and make it make sense that I've taken some training, I've learned some things I didn't know before. Had I known these things, I would not have committed that error. The judges just, they like to hear that. Now, does that mean that the judge is going to let them get off? Doesn't mean that. It could mean, though, that they don't get sentenced to go to jail. They might just get community service, or they may get probation, or they may get some time under surveillance or something. We've had that to happen. We've had people to call us and say, you know, I'm so glad I went to that class, which didn't have anything to do with us. It had to do with the material that we used and how they interacted with the other members of the group.
It sounds like the public defender that might be representing a participant in your project is cooperating as well. And I think you may have mentioned that, okay, the public defender may not know much about the participant, so this gives him some ammunition in terms of presenting a case before a judge as well.
That's a good observation, and as a matter of fact, that's absolutely right. Many times, especially youthful offenders, don't have much of a thought about how to protect themselves, the things that they need to say to their attorney. What has happened is, as our experience has been so far, is that when a person has been to the training and they have actually taken it in and they learn about their own responsibility for what they did, and they can transfer that to their attorney, it gives their attorney something to work with. It gives the attorney something to actually talk to the judge about on behalf of their client, because the client did something outside of the normal line of just sitting home watching television. They did something to better themselves, and by that the attorneys are happy with that.
Well, and Ruben, I'm kind of jumping around with your brochure, but this might be a good good time to bring up the fact that your participants, from what I understand, they have to pay for this service.
That's absolutely right.
So they're going in their own pocket, or their parents or someone is paying it. They're not getting grant money. Talk about that quickly.
Well, we felt that it's a lot more difficult for us to do it this way, when we could have gone out, maybe gotten a grant or had somebody to sponsor us and donate a lot of money. But we felt like, let's take it from grassroots up and let's find out where the problems are. And one of the major problems is that people have been using free programs over and over and over and over again. And here we are looking at on TV every day, the news every day, all of the governments in all of the states and cities and counties and all are going broke. So where are we going to get money from? We can only get the money from the people who earn it. And by doing that, the parents even assist that youngster in taking responsibility for what they do, because they might take it out of their allowance or whatever. Do you realize that on just a case that you would think would not be very expensive for an attorney to represent could cost a family $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to do that? They can come to a class like this, learn what to do, learn life could be different, and save an awful lot of money and help themselves at the same time.
That sounds very unique, Ruben. Tell us a little bit more about some of the About Face project program?
Well, if I want to use a term that a lot of people are aware of, and it's the cognitive awareness, and our theme is to use the cognitive awareness life skills training. Mm-hmm. And what that simply means is that if we can help a person become aware of something through their thinking, mm-hmm, that they never had an opportunity to do before, no one's ever caused them to or allowed them even to think through things on their own, then that's the major impetus that we have in terms of our training program.
And Ruben, that is very powerful. But I got to ask you this question,
sure,
especially the kids who might have parents, because when you say that maybe they haven't had the chance to do the thinking or something along those lines, mm-hmm, I can see some parents maybe getting a little upset about that. But that's a very powerful point, because you're reprogramming their thought process, and that's a pretty powerful endeavor there.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad you said about parents, and sometimes you may think that they would be upset. We allow them to do that, and we also allow them to take the reward at the end of the class when the child comes home and says, "You know, Ma, I never experienced anything like this before. Mm-hmm. I think I can be different. I want to be different." We've had parents to call us and say, "I certainly am glad my child was in that class. When will you have an adult class?" See, it's that kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, any change in any person's direction in life can cause them to feel different about the people who are advocating the change. Mm-hmm. You see, but what change would be better? To have the change happen on the streets, or have the change happen behind bars? Far too many, especially in our community, the African American, mm-hmm, community, face that change behind bars. They don't get a chance to do it on the street. Well, we're offering that change, okay, and that chance.
But Ruben, I have to ask you this question, though.
Sure.
Where does that put the school system now, our public school system and our private school systems, in terms of cognitive thinking? Is that missing in our public school systems, for example?
Well, let me say this. I certainly don't want to go on record as saying that it's not in their curriculum, because I'm sure with the qualified teachers and the educators that we have, at some point along in their training system, their teaching system, they're teaching children how to think and so forth. But you realize that the majority of the time, most teachers will tell you, the majority of the time that they're in a classroom, in many schools, they're handling discipline problems much more than they are actually in the training curriculum.
Okay.
So what we're doing is saying, and by the way, Francis and I have interviewed with some executives in the school systems in both counties. And
being Montgomery and Prince George's?
Yes,
or, okay,
and they are preparing a way for us to come in and have meetings with the teachers so the teachers can understand what this process is. You see, one of the things that happen to kids in the environment that we know is called school is that if a child gets a bit out of place, they become a discipline problem, there's a process that they go through, which is to send them to the principal's office, or to the nurse, or to somebody else. Mm-hmm. They gradually will get to a place where they are now labeled ADD, ADHD, and they're put on Ritalin or some other kind of drug. And from that point on, the child becomes a non-person, because they're controlled by something else called a drug. Mm-hmm. You see? What we want to try to do and encourage the teachers to take a look at, how can we put this cognitive awareness training even in the classrooms?
Ruben, how does this cognitive training work with at-risk children? Since, in particular, since in the African American community,
yes,
we have a lot of so-called at-risk kids.
Yes, you do.
At least that's what the society, certain people's society.
And I want to say this about that also. We can't take 100% ownership of that, because it's in every community. I've had the opportunity now to be in training and dialogue across communities, And I will share with you, it's everywhere.
At risk
Yes, sir. At-risk children.
behavior is across, not just in
And
African
starting
American.
at young
community.
ages.
Okay.
And I give you a real clue. One of the things, a very simple thing that happens, is riding the school bus to school, and they get into a mischief on the bus, get put off the bus. That's the beginning. And parents ought to see that as a very real beginning for long term in that kind of behavior. And teachers don't have anything to do with that. You follow what I'm going?
I do now,
Yes.
and I'm not sure if this is the right word, but I would call that kind of a marker or a red flag. But along those lines, Ruben, are there any other common markers that parents might miss or red flags that might be the beginning?
Oh gosh, yes. I have. If you mind if I just kind of look at this
Sure.
right here, I'm kind of glad you said that. They could have a child that just seems like they're emotionally disturbed. They're not paying attention. They're sitting up looking at TV at long hours, and they're not doing their homework. They're acting out in ways that the parent all of a sudden sees as strange behavior. They're not eating their meals.
Okay.
These are the beginnings that parents need to look at and say, you know, there's something going on here, and they need to begin thinking of how they can seek some help.
Got to ask you about the television example,
Yes,
though.
yes.
If they're sitting there watching TV constantly,
Yes.
long hours,
Yes.
is that the child's fault, or is that something that we should check with the parents on?
Well,
Or is that a combination?
I think that's a combination because if you take latchkey children, you know, when they come home, they don't have anybody to say you can't look at this, see, or any other behavior for that matter. But it happens quite often, you know, just right in the home. I'm going to give you an example. Do you mind
Sure.
if I do that?
Sure.
Okay. I was working with a family, and every time I went to their home, and I was a therapist at the time. Every time I went to their home to work with their children who had been labeled as ADD in school, and to work with them, they were beautiful. I mean, we could sit and talk with them, and they were model. One day I had a meeting with the parents. I said, you know, we need to talk a little bit about this because I'm not seeing what you guys are seeing. I'm getting perfect behavior from them. And this was on a Saturday morning. And I don't normally go to the office on Saturday morning, but they came, husband and wife, came, sat down and talked. And my first question with them was, how do you have dinner? I said, every time I go in your house, I said, you have your dining room table and it's all completely, all set up, it's beautiful, it's never disturbed, it looks the same. How do you have dinner? You know what it said? Well, we don't. I said, you mean the table is set like this all the time and nobody ever disturbs the table? I said, how exactly do you do it? I said, don't answer that. Let me tell you what happens. You come home from work, you get on the stove, you start fixing this and that, and the kids are standing in line there waiting for it to get fixed. And when they do it, they get in line and get a plate and dish out something for themselves, and each one goes in front of a different television in the house, and that's where they have dinner. Is that right or right? And you know what the answer was? That was right.
Oh, they felt like that was right.
That is right. Now, that was right. That was their behavior as a family.
So again, and that ties too, because time is slipping by quickly, Ruben.
Yes.
But that ties into life skills, even for adults, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes,
now,
it does.
Now we got about 4 minutes left. Now, real quick on your brochure, maybe you can talk. I notice you have here adult life skills workshop.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of them I want to talk about real quick and I'll mention to you. Maybe you can highlight them. Anger management, because we know in our community, with some of the youth, you know, maybe with the gangs and some of the adults, anger management or anger is an issue. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yes. As you know, most anger comes from some level of pain. When people have pain going on in their lives, anger is like the next step up or the next step out, they feel. Let me get angry with somebody. Let me just show my anger about this. And so we have anger management as the top course, because that's where most everything that we talk about in the class emanates from this in some form. Quiet anger, boisterous anger. There was a person in the class we just had this past Saturday. This person was there as a young person, as a conspirator in planning a murder. When she was in the class, she was able to really talk about it and let us know what that was. So anger management or anger control, you see, or anger avoidance, all three of those are part of that anger management program.
Ruben, we're down to about 3 minutes. Let me ask you
Yes,
this.
sir.
You are a facilitator, I believe, with the program.
That's correct.
As well as your wife?
Yes, she is.
Okay. Now, Ruben, especially being a man, does that offer any advantages in this program, in particular with the youth, because we know sometimes the father is not there? And then we only have about 2 minutes, so if you could quickly kind of comment on that.
Yeah, and the truth is that it's a great advantage for the students that come, whether they're an adult male or a juvenile male, to know that there are males that are a part of the program. By the way, we have 8 other facilitators, and of which 4 of them are also male facilitators.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
Sometimes you can't find 4 males in the public school system.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So that's where we are with that, sir.
Okay. Well, Ruben, I think we've got about 1 minute. Do you have a website?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's called aboutfaceproject.com. You don't need to put the in front. www.aboutfaceproject.com. And it's under construction, by the way. Because we're changing it more and more and more. And one of the things it's changing to is we want to incorporate the project in not just for people who may have fractured the law, but for people who haven't fractured the law, and they can see it. So,
well, Ruben,
thank you.
I'm just amazed at how time just flew by. But look, this is a wonderful project, the About Face project, and we wish you, as well as your wife Frances, and everybody involved with this, the very best of success. And we're going to definitely have to bring you back here. So we want to thank you for coming in and being on Africa's Vision Network. And,
You're
and
very
once
welcome,
again,
sir.
thank you very much for this huge contribution to our society.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Saya